𝐄𝐌𝐀𝐈𝐋.
This private jet.
This luxurious private jet.
I just bought this luxurious private jet.
I somehow have unrestricted access to all the great pyramids of Egypt. Ha 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 ha. Would you risk earning $1 for $500,000?
Everyone for $500,000,000.
I Shane Hannes so bra så har ransom guy. You're older now. It's gotten harder to find new things, and things aren't as fun as they used to be. You get frustrated more easily reading didn't used to be this hard. Movies are so long now, and these content creators sure are taking their sweet time while you slave away at the hatchery.
Thank God for the hatchery. We'd all be lost.
But these experiences aren't your fault. Or that's not quite right. It is your fault, but it's also hard to protect yourself from an attack that you were never made aware of and had no time to prepare for. And at this point, we've all been frog-boiled for so long that not only did the rising temperature slip us by unnoticed, we started enjoying the hot bath. And you might be thinking at this point,
hey, Skull Trumpet Green Screen Mustache Man, why must thou serve me this rancid slice of depression fuel?
Because that's how you talk, apparently. But do not fear, the 𝐿𝐵𝐴 era has not come yet, and this video does come bearing good news. See, I've spent the last couple of months going through a depressive episode, but I've also spent the last couple of months reading through a bunch of boring research papers and rewatching a certain TV show, and I've come away with some conclusions that I'd now like to share with you, and I think that they may help. To be absolutely clear though, I can't fix your clinical depression or ADHD fidgeting or crippling social anxiety. Sorry. But there is a small chance that if you hear me out in this video, you'll walk away from it with a couple of new tools in your media consumption tool belt. Because yes, even though it may or may not be the main source of your issues, I do believe that the media that you consume and how you consume it plays a pretty large role for your mental well-being. And hence, today we'll be talking about slop content, non-slop content, and how your stinky little brain reacts to those two different kinds of stimuli. But before we get into all of that, I do want to preface this whole thing by clarifying that the basic premise of this video is not that you shouldn't enjoy like cheap entertainment. I'm a huge advocate for just consuming shit that you think is fun. Like, I don't watch 𝙲𝚃, who we'll talk about and be sort of scapegoating in a bit, or really any content similar to his, but I do periodically watch shitty exploitative true crime videos due to how little mental effort it apparently takes me to listen to other people's worst day of their life while I do my dishes, and probably because it saves me from having to be alone with my thoughts for 30 minutes. God forbid. So like, I get it. But today we will be discussing shit that some people would probably consider pretentious art, and also shit that some people would call soulless slop, sort of comparing them to each other, but what I don't want to imply is that either of them should or shouldn't exist. There is no high horse beneath me at this moment. I'm not here to tell you to stop consuming whatever specific flavor of slop that tickles your fancy. This is a safe space, bestie. But okay, with that out of the way, let's start at the beginning by... From the moment he met the dad of one of his childhood friends, David Lynch was a painter. His friend Toby Keeler had a dad, Bushnell Keeler, who was a painter and who gifted Lynch a copy of the book The Art Spirit. And from that point on, Lynch decided to dedicate himself to the art life. College came along and Lynch started studying at the Corcoran School of Arts and Design in Washington, D.C., but soon transferred to the School of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, much easier to pronounce, from which he soon dropped out. For a brief moment, he planned to go to Europe, but only lasted here for about 2 weeks before going back to the States and enrolling at Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. This is where he took his first steps into motion pictures, making animations out of some of his paintings, including the exquisite 6 Men Getting Sick 6 Times. This led to another student commissioning him to create a film installation, which ultimately failed and then led to The Alphabet, followed by the American Film Institute funding The Grandmother. And skipping over some details here, and we eventually get to Eraserhead.
Just cut them up like regular chickens?
Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens. You'll be all right in a minute.
Eraserhead is a lot.
Sick.
And it's also almost nothing at all. It's a man's head bouncing on the ground being picked up by a boy and taken to a pencil factory. That's how Lynch explained it. To give a sort of broad Wikipedia-style summary, Eraserhead is about the anxiety of not really feeling equipped for the expectations of adulthood in general and parenthood in particular. Our main character, a man who has trouble with intimacy, has a girlfriend who gives birth to an AirPod and then dips. His fumbling attempts to care for his child and relate to the other people in his life sort of escalate from there. It's definitely the ultimate edgy high school sleepover movie, like the perfect stone for the first time in college experience. But it's also been called genius, and pretentious, and terrifying, and it probably is all or none of those things. Personally, I think that, if nothing else, it's at least an extremely vulnerable and honest film.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Why elaborate on that?
No, I won't.
And I think the reason that it's so firmly lodged itself in the zeitgeist as a sort of weirdo classic is that it's served as a sort of baby's first surrealism for a lot of people. other than whatever specific brand of psychedelic children's media that you might have grown up on, Eraserhead is very likely to be your first exposure to something that seems completely determined to resist your understanding. And so it's not very strange that the name David Lynch has then gone on to become an adjective. And if you asked someone to describe exactly what Lynchian means, they'd probably use words like hallucinatory or bizarre, which are both true but also not quite the full picture. I think it's central to understanding Lynch's work, in as far as that's even possible, to see that to him, the mundane and delightful activities of daily life exists directly on top of some powerful and disorienting current of mystery and strangeness, both unfathomable and sometimes downright menacing, as opposed to being like two polar opposites. He'll often sequence shots and direct actors in very specific ways to elicit these truly baffling moments where something completely ordinary seamlessly flows into something unexpected or unsettling. A through line in a lot of his work is that he presents the beauty of the world, but he does that by highlighting the dark and the ugly, for where does the light shine the brightest if not in the dark? But also, to be clear, I don't think that it's all meticulously planned out and with explicit meanings. I'm pretty sure a lot of his stuff is just intuitions and like kind of vibes based.
A lot of times I don't know the meaning of the idea, and it drives me crazy. I think we should know the meaning of the idea, and I think about them. On my first feature, Eraserhead, I did not know what these things meant, really meant.
I started to dream, and some scenes came, and those scenes and other ideas came into Inland Empire.
You described it as a film about a woman in trouble.
A woman in trouble, yeah.
I started to dream.
Dreams. Beautiful, nonsensical, meaningful, ugly dreams that flash before your inner eye as you sleep, as you manta sleep. This video's sponsor. I hope I'm in front of the camera, I actually can't see anything. So as you may or may not know, I don't really do a lot of sponsors on this channel, but about a year ago, Manta reached out and they sent me this, and then I sort of ghosted them for about a year until I remembered, because the thing is I had been using it since they sent it, so I genuinely do use this every single night, and I've been doing so for quite a while. This specific one is the Manta Pro Sleep Mask, which has a pretty sick design, because it has these eye cups that you can remove and sort of adapt to your freaky little face, so sort of no matter what head shape you have, they'll still fit. And because they're sort of concave, I guess is the word, there's no pressure on your actual eye, it's all sort of around the edge here, which also gives you 100% blackout, which is crazy. And I love that because I'm a freak and I sleep weird hours. So if you're a freak like me, or even if you sleep well but you just want to sleep even better, the website should be on screen, or you could click the link in the description and make sure to use my coupon code for 10% off. I genuinely try to take as few sponsors as possible, but when I do, I want it to be stuff that I actually use and like. This is one of those things, so thank you to Manta, and on with the video. So back to the history here. After the somewhat divided but ultimately positive reception of Eraserhead, Lynch went on to make several more films throughout the 80s, some more successful than others, and I'm skipping over a lot of stuff here, but he eventually finds himself working on a Marilyn Monroe biopic together with... Having a lot less to say about Mark Frost than David Lynch is a pattern that Frost has been subjected to many a time, and one that I'm about to repeat. Sorry, Mark. Growing up in California, Frost came from a family of actors, writers, and artists. In high school, he interned at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, and when it came time for college, he studied acting, directing, and playwriting. During college, he made friends with Michael Keaton, as they both worked on the lighting crew for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That's some real Trivial Pursuit IMDb trivia-ass information. Only on the Jeffiot channel will you learn such nuggets as Mark Frost knew Michael Keaton in college. Because they worked on the Mr. Rogers show. That's insane. After college, Frost worked on the writing team for the NBC series Hill Street Blues, a cop show that ran for 146 episodes throughout the 80s. But now, as the 80s makes way for the 90s, police serial writer Mark Frost and experimental film enigma David Lynch are planning on making a Marilyn Monroe biopic together, and it's a project that eventually falls through, along with a couple of others, and somewhere during all of this, the idea of making a TV show gets floated, and soon enough, Lynch's agent had encouraged him to tell a story about small-town America, but in a way that only Lynch could. Frost imagined a Dickensian setup that could run almost perpetually by sort of jumping between different characters in a big ensemble cast. Together, they designed a lumber mill town somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. The police station, the cafe, a hotel right on top of a waterfall, a body washed ashore, wrapped in plastic. They pitched the show to ABC in 1998. That can't be right. It's probably 1988. It's probably just a typo in my script. I'll put it on screen to be safe. So they pitched it to ABC in 1988, who ordered a 2-hour pilot. But unconvinced if this would be of interest to their audience, ABC requested the team to film an alternative ending that at least somewhat tied the story together so that it could be released as a feature film if the show didn't get picked up for a full season. And for a while, that seemed like a good call, as network executives who saw the pilot were unconvinced. Which is like, damn, you know? You're telling me that the suits, the money men, the executive producers or whatever are unable to recognize quality even if it slaps them across the face? That's crazy. Now I've heard it all. But then, Bob Iger, yes, Mr. Mickey Mouse, championed the show, and eventually ABC ordered 7 more episodes. The pilot aired on April 8th, 1990, and it was an immediate sensation. More than 34 million people were watching, perhaps a third of all the TV viewing in the US that night. And what they saw was a show that, in a lot of ways, paved the road for essentially every other prestige television show all the way up to today. Twin Peaks shifted effortlessly between genres, mining compelling interpersonal drama like a soap 1 minute, only to throw some real weird paranormal shit on the screen in the next, in ways that TV audiences were not used to at the time. And this is a pretty widely accepted conclusion here, so nothing groundbreaking, but I think a lot of it comes down to the somewhat unexpected but pretty logical collaboration between Lynch and Frost. Like, it makes sense. It's a cop show, procedural drama writer, and transcendental meditation weirdo. The first to reel in the second, and the second to add some spice to the first, to keep it very simple. Frost is also definitely into weird stuff. So it's like, it's not quite that simple, but I still think that conclusion sort of holds up in some way. And for the purposes of this conversation we're having right now, that, yeah, we can leave it at that. Now, for some stuff that I'll get to later in this video to make sense, we need to talk a little bit about what actually happens in the show. So, some Twin Peaks spoilers up ahead. I won't be walking through the full series. I'm gonna actively try to leave out as much as I can, but if you're super sensitive about that kind of stuff and you haven't watched it yet, this is your warning. So, in the sleepy, strange, and simultaneously mundane town of Twin Peaks, a dead body washes up on shore. wrapped in plastic. The deceased is Laura Palmer, a high school prom queen girl next door type. She's obviously been murdered. This being something bigger than the local police force are equipped to handle, Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Dale Cooper is called to the scene. Cooper is earnest, self-assured, and at times quite unusual, especially in some of his investigation methods, and also, I'm in love with him, and if you try to take him from me, I will kill you.
Hands in my pants cause she a freak. I told her that I'm celibate, ain't fucking about a week. Psych, bitch,
I'll fucking kill you. And as Cooper fell in love with the town of Twin Peaks, so did the viewers. Following the investigation of Laura's death, the story grew to encompass her friends and neighbors, and then their friends, the local cops, the town's movers and shakers, Cooper's colleagues in the FBI, and eventually the criminals and the deeper, more abstract evil forces poisoning Twin Peaks. Laura's murder investigation actually became a rather contentious issue between the Twin Peaks creative team and ABC. It provided the central motivating force of the story, shepherding Coop and viewers through plot lines about underage prostitution, drug smuggling, domestic abuse, insurance fraud, teenage angst, extra-dimensional portals, and so much infidelity. Like, I swear to God, every single character on this show at one point or another is cheating on their partner. Every single one. It's wild. The issue arose when the suits at ABC realized that Lynch had really no intention of actually revealing who the killer was until maybe the end of the show, if at all. And terrified that viewers would lose interest without some fast gratification, ABC insisted that the mystery had to be solved, the sooner the better. So, halfway through the second season, Laura's killer is revealed. At this point, Lynch and Frost had already started drifting away from the production, and some viewers were sensing that the second season definitely felt different from the first. Maybe put in a clip of something lame here. Maybe the three cops that walk together.
Thank you.
And then the show just kept going, trying hard to maintain interest by spinning up increasingly implausible and cringeworthy story arcs from the now extensive cast of more or less interesting characters. I will say that I kinda like the second season. It is a slog at times, but I think it has a lot of very funny moments.
Hello, Wilbur!
I do still like the second season, even if I can absolutely acknowledge that it's different. It's very different.
Sounds like we have a mutual love. Cards.
And as the second season drew to an end, show writers made a last-ditch effort to secure a third season by ending the second one with a big cliffhanger, with Agent Cooper trapped in the Black Lodge, a space sort of in an alternate dimension that seemed to somehow be connected to the source of evil within Twin Peaks, while being replaced out in the real world by some kind of evil doppelganger who had free run of the town. But even that wasn't enough, and just like that, Twin Peaks went on indefinite hiatus. The last episode, which Lynch returned to direct, got 10.4 million viewers, which was considered disastrously low at the time. What a strange world we live in. But while the TV show Twin Peaks was now basically over, the story of Twin Peaks was not. Around this same time, Lynch had signed a deal with a French distributor to produce 3 movies, and he asked if the first could be about Twin Peaks, saying that he wasn't done with the material. The result was Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me.
Gordon!
I'm not going to talk about Judy. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all. We're going to keep her out of it. Who do you think this is there?
For God's sakes, Jeffries, where the hell have you been? You've been damn near 2 years.
I sure as hell want to tell you that.
Darwin Bosie. Yeah.
A movie so despised when it premiered that if there was even a tiny sliver of hope for a third season before this, now that idea was well and truly dead. And to understand why Fire Walk With Me got received the way it did, what you need to know, I think, is this. I mentioned before that the show contained plot lines about underage prostitution, drug smuggling, domestic abuse, and stuff like that. And while that is true, and while there are a few moments in the show depicting some pretty horrific stuff, it's heavily overshadowed by...
This is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.
And...
My log saw something that night.
Really? What did it see?
Ask it.
No matter how dark the show got, it always bounced back to, like, I don't know, Cooper holding in his hand a small box of chocolate bunnies, Lynch being reminded of a small Mexican chihuahua, or Pete realizing that there was a fish in the percolator. And in contrast, the movie, on the other hand, which was mostly a prequel to the show, took what we had already learned happened to Laura and slapped us hard with a reminder that there's nothing whimsical about a child being subjected to the violence and sexual abuse that Laura Palmer suffered in her final days. For an audience that had perhaps forgotten, that had only spent time with her as some sort of vague idea of a benign saint-like ghost whose ultimate demise brought the cute special agent to the town, this was horrifying. It also didn't help that Fire Walk With Me featured Special Agent Dale Cooper for a total of like 20 minutes. Pair this with the quite significantly more concentrated dose of Lynchian strangeness.
She's my mother's sister's girl.
Yeah, the movie just wasn't what people expected, nor what they wanted at the time. As the years have passed, however, Fire Walk With Me has had a resurgence. It's become sort of a cult classic and finally earned a full-on critical reappraisal to the point that it's now often considered one of Lynch's it's one of Lynch's to the point that it's now often considered one of Lynch's masterpieces. So, okay, let me get this right. What you're saying is that over time, people became more comfortable thinking about and interpreting this movie that they started out loathing, and they found that their initial gut reaction didn't paint a complete picture? Is that it? And that once they sat down and actually engaged with it, they found that it had a lot more meaning and substance? Huh. I'm sure that won't be related to the broader point of this video later on. In September of 2024, the internal text document / booklet How to Succeed in MrBeast Production was leaked online. It's 36 pages of Jimmy Beast performing a sort of seemingly stream of consciousness ramble about how to make videos while working under him. It contains such great tips as:
an image of someone sitting in ketchup in a bathtub is exponentially more interesting than someone sitting in their front yard.
And the infamously titled chapter, No Does Not Mean No. Which in all fairness, if you actually sit down to read what he says in it, isn't as bad as it sounds. It's just super basic producer stuff, like when trying to book a location, see if you can leverage the MrBeast name and the MrBeast brand to get a better deal or convince someone who maybe wasn't initially interested. Which is very reasonable and normal when planning a shoot somewhere. Like, it's more baffling that he felt the need to put this in there in the first place, because I can't imagine what person would be, you know, working with planning shoots and like booking locations that would like call someone and go, hey, can we borrow your store, we want to film in it. And that person goes,
no thank you.
And you just go, oh, okay, guess we can't get a store. Like, you don't have to tell that person to check somewhere else, or to offer more money, or to say, hey, you know about MrBeast? That's us, or whatever. But of course, most of all, buddy, phrasing. Why would you title it this in the first place? That's a controversy just waiting to happen. And I guess it does run the risk of like allowing that phrase to trickle into your internal corporate culture. It's a bad move, but it's not as bad as it sounds at a first glance. But it also contains 6 separate uses of the word fucking, 4 of which being followed by the word hilarious. And it does promise a $1,000 reward for reading the whole thing and then taking a quiz. So, Jimbo, if you're seeing this, send me that fucking quiz. I'm gonna fucking nail it. This book dropped right in the middle of a series of controversies that the Beast and his various channels found themselves in, of which I have very little knowledge and, to be frank, very little interest. Actually, in general, I have never had a lot of interest in the Beast. He doesn't strike me as a particularly interesting person.
Oh, this is crazy. Look how young I look. Look at the difference. This me doesn't have a beard, doesn't have a mustache.
He doesn't seem to have a lot of interesting things to say.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel like people are a lot nicer than you would think.
And I'm pretty sure that the content he makes isn't aimed at me. In fact, I know it isn't aimed at me, as outlined in the book.
The average MrBeast viewer is a teenage memer that likes video games.
I think a teenage memer that likes video games is so fucking good. 'Cause I'm just a teenage memer that likes video games and MrBeast pranks. All this to say, I don't really seek out the content of the Beast in the same way that I don't seek out videos of people loudly eating crab legs into a blue Yeti. For, you see, I'm not a freak. That being said though, from what I have seen of his content, which is perhaps something like 3 videos over the years, I wouldn't say that I necessarily hated the experience. I'd even go as far as saying that it was extremely easy to consume. I didn't have to push through it with gritted teeth. We all know the formula at this point. A loud and attention-grabbing intro, some kind of hook to keep you watching, and then once you've reached a certain point in the video, you just kind of... Actually, yeah, I think he says it best himself.
We have what we call back half content. In general, once you have someone for 6 minutes, they are super invested in the story, and are probably in what I call a lull. They're watching the video without even realizing they're watching a video.
Which is a pretty accurate description of how it felt to watch those videos that I've seen. Again, I didn't hate it, but that also doesn't mean that I, in any regard, enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, this isn't good content.
I'm giving this Lamborghini to Blake. Thank you. And on top of sending the train, I'm also gonna have these 8 soldiers shoot Blake. Thank you. 10,000 bullets at Blake. Thank you.
But what I'm getting at is how the content made me feel while watching it, and it's actually kind of baffling. Like, I'm pretty sure that he blew up a school bus, or like maybe an airplane. Like, they did some insane stuff in that video, yet I couldn't tell you what it was, and I find that sort of scary. Like, it was so very easy to sit through, yet none of it stuck with me. And I think that when every cut, every animation, sound effect, transition, and deceptive ad progress bar has been optimized through thousands of hours of number crunching to the point where every single imperfection has been ironed out, what's left is something that is literally unable to make me perk up for any reason. It is incapable of surprising me. Even when he's, buying a city and blowing it up or whatever he does. In the same way that you can tell me that the distance between Venus and Jupiter is something like 670 million kilometers, as many times as you want, and all you'll get from me is a wow. And that's crazy, because I'm literally unable to comprehend the size of that number. ⁻Beast over here could blow up 10 or 50 or 1,000 747s in a video, and wow, I'd say that's crazy. For everything that goes on in these videos, there's not a single thing that manages to surprise me or really makes me feel anything. Fluency theory is the idea that mental effort matters, and when something feels easy to think about, we are more likely to evaluate it positively. It even suggests that maybe, just maybe, our brains tend to mistake ease of understanding for quality, truth, or beauty, even when those things aren't actually related. See American politics. That would have been so much funnier if Sweden wasn't also slowly turning into a fascist, right-wing, totalitarian nightmare. But funny joke. Insert funny joke here. Now, I am not an expert in literally anything, and I don't want to pretend to be, so take what I'm about to say with a pinch of salt and just know that it's through the lens of this guy, and also my co-writer Zach. The idea is that the brain has strategies for sorting and filing all of the sensory information that it encounters, and that information presented in certain ways is easier for the brain to process. For example, symmetrical images are easier to process than asymmetrical images. It's easier to process an image when it has clear contrast between the subject and the background. Something that I wish I could showcase by having myself sit further from this red fabric, but my recording space is really small. Information you've encountered before, or information that adheres to a prototype that you're familiar with, is easier to process than information that's totally new to you. And importantly, the easier a stimulus is to process, the more fluently you process it, the better you tend to feel about it. Now, you can probably imagine the myriad of directions that a trained psychologist or someone with a job title that doesn't start with online could take this. But for us here today, fluency theory is relevant because of how it affects us when experiencing art. If we tend to feel better about sensory information that we can process fluently, that means that on some fundamental level, and that's not very fluent of you, is it? If we tend to feel better about sensory information that we can process fluently, that means that on some fundamental level, we're going to be drawn to art composed of easily processed elements. Some psychologists go so far as to suggest that this is where our sense of beauty comes from. If we process art fluently, we feel good about it, and those good feelings give rise to our perception that it is beautiful. And by that same token, if the art is hard to process, if it's confusing or novel or really presents us with any processing friction, we're less likely to be into it. Now, you can probably see where I'm going with this, but think back to some of the characteristics of easily processed information. Repetition, stereotypes, symmetry, contrast. Stuff like kids' books and big IP blockbuster sequels come to mind. Coldplay, Thomas Kincaid, Season 12 of Law & Order. But you know what else it sounds a lot like?
Take off your blindfold. Take off your blindfold. I recreated. I just trapped. I built. I have built. I just built. I built 2 massive cubes. The strongest man on earth. This man in this straitjacket. 5 men and 5 women. These 2 strangers. These 2 strangers. These 2 people. 100 people. 100 kids. 100 kids. 100 adults. 100 men. 100 sets of twins. 456 people. 2,000 contestants. They will win a quarter. $1 million. $250 million. $1 million. 1,000. 10,000. 50,000. 250 million. 150 million. 45 million. 5 million. 800,000. 10,000. 10 million. $100,000 golden ice cream. 5,000. 10,000. $1 billion rocket ship. $500 million. 5 million. Half a million. $250,000. 500 grand.
And okay, I've been dancing around it for a bit. I need to tell you what bothers me the most about MrBeast. Aside from the allegations of pressuring participants into continuing physically and mentally demanding tasks even when they say they want to stop, allegedly running illegal lotteries, taking advantage of the capitalist hellscape that is the United States economy to weaponize philanthropy, permanently altering the brain chemistry of a whole generation of children, and playing a large role in ruining what used to be the best online platform on the planet. But yeah, not accounting for any of that, the thing that really fucking gets me is that while he is making his bullshit brain rot shit piss content, he thinks that it's not only good, but the best content out there.
We're not where we are because I'm a genius level business guy, Donaldson says. I know how to make better content on YouTube than anyone else in the world.
And he's right, you know? It's true. He genuinely does make the best possible content. It all comes down to being measurable, right? It makes sense. If number on video A is higher than number on video B, then video A is objectively better. It's what a fucking dumbass baby would say. What, are you 12? A couple years ago, I was talking to this person on Discord who was also sort of getting into YouTube around the same time as I was, and at one point I made some casual complaint about how annoying it can be as a creator to feel forced to make a click-worthy thumbnail rather than just one that you think looks good. How it can kind of feel that if you sort of drag a topic for 6 seconds too long, you might lose a significant portion of the audience. You know, shit that we love to complain about here at Technically Unemployed Incorporated. Basically, what I was saying was, if faced with the choice, I'd prefer to be able to pick good over algorithm friendly, without the risk of, you know, losing my job. He got back to me and his message said, quote, "Depends on how you define good. To me, it makes sense that good is defined by being the thing that the most amount of people enjoy, and the YouTube algorithm simply promotes that which most people enjoy, so ... End quote. And from what I can gather, he's basically saying 2 things here. Number 1, if video get high number, video good. If video number low, video bad. And number 2, there is a worm living inside of my brain. Imagine, just for a second, watching something and going, you know, yeah, oh, I love this, I'm enjoying myself. But, you know, then you look down and you see the view count and, oh, hold on, as it turns out, I was wrong, and this is bad, actually. See, the fuck-ass machine told me so. Brother, imagine for a second if 2001 A Space Odyssey came out today on YouTube. Would it be a
banger?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you reckon the click-through rate would be on this one? What does the viewer retention graph say on
this one, Alfred?
His name isn't actually Alfred. I made that. It could have been, though. Definitely looked like an Alfred. I guess I could mention here as well, that soft and gentle British voice that you heard before.
Bonjour, Jeff. Apologies if you can hear any noise outside. It is absolutely bucketing it down with snow here.
That was the voice of Henry Lewis, who has a great video on the topic of YouTube Slop as well. You should definitely check it out. Super underrated channel, super nice guy. Deserves a lot more attention. If you enjoy my crash outs, you'll surely enjoy his.
He thinks of himself as this Michelin star chef producing producing meals that everybody will love, when in reality he has the culinary complexity of a urinal cake.
And much in line with the conclusions that Henry draws in that video, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that this is slop. It's expensive slop, but it's slop. And it's honestly so embarrassing and quite cringe, frankly, to hear 𝐄𝐌𝐻𝐵east sit and talk about it in a way that implies that it is anything other than slop.
Like, growing up, like, I was, like, since YouTube's what I do, I should consume YouTube. So if I consumed, like, movies or other stuff, I always kind of saw it as a waste of time unless it was culture. So then it would make sense to watch it. Like, it makes sense to watch Spider-Man, so I know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, for me, what's optimal is to just watch a bunch of YouTube, so then I better understand what's trending and how to make better videos and pacing and stuff like that.
I think of it sort of like how Nestle, PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, Conglomerated, Incorporated spends billions of dollars designing foods that stimulates your taste buds just enough to make you feel good, but never fills you up. Always yearning for another bite, never quite satisfied. Smooth, insubstantial, barely even noticeable.
The fish he wants, the way he likes it.
What's the matter, honey? You've barely touched your horror beyond human comprehension. Smooth, insubstantial, barely even. Quick, what's your favorite MrBeast video? Which one is it? Tell me what happens in this one, You wouldn't know. No one knows. just as little as you have a favorite individual Dorito in your bag.
Smooth, insubstantial, barely even noticeable.
Do you want to know what doesn't go down quite as easy?
You know, my heart is always here with you. And these fine people, my parents, who I love so dearly.
In October of 2014, Showtime announced that it would air a miniseries directed by David Lynch and written by Lynch and Mark Frost that continued the story left dangling in the end of Twin Peaks Season 2 and Fire Walk with Me more than 20 years ago. Rumors had swirled for years that Lynch and Frost might be interested in returning to Twin Peaks, and in the Black Lodge, Laura Palmer had promised Coop that she'd see him again in 25 years, a milestone that was fast approaching.
Hello, Ashton Spoofer. I'll see you again in 25 years.
And after some very rocky budget negotiations, the project started filming, returning almost all of the surviving original cast. The first episode aired on May 21st, 2017. And it's definitely Lynch. And I'm not gonna bury the lead here. Watching through Twin Peaks The Return, a name that neither Frost nor Lynch particularly liked, by the way, but that Showtime insisted on, is the singular event that sparked me wanting to make this video in the first place. It's why I started sort of building props and ordering red curtains. Because it would have been so easy, right, to give the audience that adored the first Twin Peaks and made Fire Walk with Me into a cult classic, a new season of television that slid neatly into place alongside the original show. They could have offered closure on the questions that had been agitating the fanbase for years, offered a few trademark Lynchian twists and non sequiturs, like previously mentioned. For all that the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks were occasionally disconcerting with ugly undercurrents of exploitation and abuse, they were more so cozy and atmospheric.
This must be where pies go when they die.
And more of that would have been fun and satisfying. It'd probably even have been good. Audiences satisfied, critics impressed, suit pockets lined with cash from resurrecting the corpse of yet another IP from the time before creativity was outlawed. But that is decidedly not the direction that Lynch and Frost took. They woke up and chose war, friction, pain. I think they wanted it to be just as hard for the viewer to step back into the world of Twin Peaks as it'd be for them to try and recreate it. Or perhaps in the same way that we are no longer in the early 90s, neither is Twin Peaks and neither are Lynch or Frost. For how lovely it would have been to step right back into the Great Northern as if no time had passed, that was really never a possibility. And what they delivered instead was something so singular and strange that I can promise you that there's literally nothing else like it. Much like that first season, this is unlike anything before it, and probably unlike anything we'll ever see again. Now, those were a lot of big claims, and I'm gonna try to back some of them up, but the only way to truly understand what I mean would be to watch the full thing, which, you know, I really think you should. It's very, very good, but let's see here. So first of all, Agent Dale Cooper is on screen for maybe like 20 minutes total again, and that's over the 18 hours that is Season 3. Season 3 is 18 hours long. Now, that's not to say that Coop's actor, Kyle MacLachlan, only shows up for 20 minutes. No, he's still unquestionably the backbone of the show, but he spends most of his time as not one, but two different characters, albeit very similar looking. One of them is Mr. C, which is the fan name for the evil doppelganger that we met at the end of Twin Peaks Season 2, and the other is Dougie Jones, an almost catatonic husk of a man whose barely conscious body continually stumbles his way through the stereotypical suburban life that he led before he became, like this.
Hi!
I think what we're basically meant to conclude is that Cooper is somewhere behind those eyes, badly damaged and unable to regain his memories. But here's the kicker. As we, the audience, wait for him to regain his senses and get back to doing the sort of things that we expect from Cooper, he somehow manages to bring nothing but good fortune and positivity for himself and everyone that he meets, even though he seems so profoundly cognitively impaired that all he can do is absently repeat the last words of the sentence of whoever he's talking to.
Damn good Joe, huh, Dougie? Damn good Joe.
This is serious, Dougie. This is no game.
Game.
Uh-huh. Okay, Dougie. We'll play a game.
I need to take a good look at you.
Look at you.
Was your car stolen?
Stolen?
What the fuck? In the box there. Is that a cherry pie?
Cherry pie.
And I'm not kidding when I say that the life of Dougie Jones and his family improves in every single way, starting from the second where whoever Dougie was before this vanished and a brain-damaged Cooper stepped into him. And I have a lot of thoughts about what exactly Lynch wants to say with this. Like, am I meant to conclude that even when Cooper is barely able to function, he still has an inherent positive effect on the people that he interacts with? That was what my co-writer Zach's initial take was on it. Well, mine was sort of the other way around. Like, the original Dougie had every opportunity to make life great for himself, his wife, and his kid, who from everything we learn about them really seem like they deserve it. But he didn't, because he was such a piece of shit that replacing him with a non-verbal zombie incapable of dressing himself or executing a full train of thought improves their life in every regard. And as you might remember, Fire Walk With Me also famously featured not enough Coop for the audience's liking, which 100% confirms to me that it wasn't Lynch being clueless then, and it's not Lynch being clueless now. He knows that we want more Cooper. These are deliberate choices, and we're meant to take something away from the feelings of perhaps disappointment, frustration, and confusion that this leaves in us. But it also makes perfect sense. One of the reasons Cooper is so beloved is that he seems effortlessly competent, self-assured, self-possessed, in touch with arcane ways of knowing that other people just don't have access to. But now you can't help but question if that was ever really the case. And that feels very much like something that Twin Peaks: The Return wants us to be asking ourselves. Should we have trusted Coop as much as we did to ever solve the case? And speaking of questionable cops and the many, many things about The Return that will likely stick with me until the day that I eventually perish, that giggle is this character's main trait. He has a giggle. Now, who is this character, you ask? Well, that's one of the three Fluency brothers. You know, the trio of brothers that work as police officers in Las Vegas. Oh, what's that? How are they in the grand scheme of things connected to the murder of Laura Palmer? Don't worry about it. And the obvious question here is, why? Why does he get the time to do the giggle? To be clear, it happens several times. And it's not just a giggle. We sit on these long, rambling conversations between the Fusco boys. By the time that we reach the end of the season, we could write a whole little backstory for these three completely irrelevant goofballs, just comprised of the stuff that we've picked up on as the camera lingered on them while barely advancing the Dougie Jones story arc, which is already a story that feels tangentially related at best to what we would assume is the main plot here. Everything that happens on screen in a movie or TV show is there on purpose. Okay, maybe less so in Lynch project than other directors, but as a general rule of thumb, in a scripted TV show there are time constraints and size constraints and budget constraints, so the creative team is extremely judicious with what they put on screen. Anything that you're seeing or hearing has been affirmatively chosen as the best possible thing to do at that moment to tell the intended story or create the desired mood. And if you watch Twin Peaks: The Return with this in mind, I think you'll lose your mind.
Call it tails squawk. Fuck, I wish I knew how you did that.
There's so much stuff on screen that does not seem to be advancing the plot or reinforcing any of the ideas that the creative team is clearly playing with. Why do we need so much insight into the relationship between the two people who get their faces melted by some supernatural force in a secretive New York glass box room?
Can I join you?
Tracy, I'm sorry, but no one can come in here.
I can't come in?
That's right. Top secret.
Ooh. Now I'm so curious, you're driving me crazy.
In fact, I gotta go back in. You're a bad girl, Tracy.
Why do we need to follow Candy, the bunny girl's emotional roller coaster after a fly swatting gone wrong?
Let me see this. Off of me. What is it? Get away, Candy.
Candy, I'm fine. I'm okay.
In what way do the scenes of unnamed characters having intense emotional experiences at the Roadhouse serve the narrative? other than to set up the musical numbers at the end of most episodes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 9-inch nail.
Also, don't answer those hypothetical questions down in the comments, okay? I know, I'm building towards something. In episode 7, in lieu of a live performance, there's a shot that goes on for 2 minutes, 20 seconds and 15 frames of a guy sweeping the Roadhouse floor while Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs plays over the speakers. In one of the most remarkable sequences in TV history, episode 8 dedicates almost 10 full minutes to more or less abstract representations to the Trinity test nuclear detonation, the first time an atom bomb was ever detonated on this planet. Scored by the nerve-shredding Threnody to the victims of Hiroshima by fucking Krzysztof Penderecki. And it's almost as if the artificiality of these images that Lynch chooses emphasizes just how incomprehensible this event is, how impossible it is to describe in standard filmic language. And that's not even touching on how fucking bonkers the rest of that sequence is, or that episode as a whole, like the opening car ride where Lynch seems absolutely determined to use the least possible lights to keep his actors distinguished from the background, or the fact that the bulk of this episode's dialogue consists of 3 sentences broadcast by the world's most menacing Abraham Lincoln impersonator after mounting a one-man invasion of a radio station, and heard by a girl who falls asleep as a frog-fly hybrid crawls down her throat. And then in another dimension, I'm gonna go on, in another dimension, we see like Laura Palmer's soul being created and then sent into our world to combat the evil that was set free when the atom split. It's a lot. In film school, I learned the old adage, get in late, get out early, essentially meaning that to make a scene punchy and exciting, you should start as close as possible to the meat of the narrative and then end it as soon as possible. Basically, without stressing or forcing anything, make the scenes functional while avoiding the temptation to bloat the narrative with info that is of no value to the person watching. Pretty ironic. I make very long videos now. But why does it seem that Lynch delights in upending that whole notion? Genuine question. Why? He practically lavishes time and attention on unnamed characters and even just empty sets for second after unsettling second. And I think it's worth mentioning that the rocky budget negotiations that I mentioned before was about the number of episodes that fucking shit-ass. And I think it's worth mentioning that the rocky budget negotiations before was about the number of episodes. Showtime wanted this season to be 9 episodes, but Lynch and Frost insisted that it has to be 18, meaning that this was non-negotiable to them. And if I had to suggest an answer to all of these hypothetical questions, which I will, that's why I ask them, I will use another similarly done to death idiom: learn how to walk before you run. You know how Nicolas Cage in the last few years has been recognized to, be aware of the fact that he's wacky? Like that he isn't just some insane person who thinks he's doing normal acting, but rather someone deeply invested in the methodology of acting and who approaches it with like very deliberate intentions. That definitely goes for Lynch as well. He's very well aware that he isn't making like a normal show here. He knows that. He knows the rules, which is why he can choose to break them. And it is exactly that, a choice, not an accident. Which goes back to what I said before regarding the deliberate choices of the return. You are seeing what you were meant to see, not like the accidental fumbling of some slipshod director. Never used the word slipshod before. Usually I would switch out a word that Zach puts in the script if it's like something I would never say, but I thought it was so funny and I kind of want to start saying it. Slipshod. I'd also like to say that I wasn't completely honest or truthful before when I said that this season's tendency to focus on giggling cops, fly swatting, and Dougie Jones didn't reinforce any of the ideas that are important to the show. Because from what I can gather, or like the sense that I'm getting, is that Lynch wants me, the viewer, to understand that these stories are happening to humans. He wants to make that point so badly that he's willing to upend a lot of the grammar and unspoken expectations of film to do it. He doesn't want the nameless cops or the stock casino gangsters to be cardboard cutouts, written briefly into the story to advance the plot in their small way or contribute to the self-actualization of one of the characters we've been conditioned to actually care about. He wants us to know that the extra who gets one line in the Roadhouse has just as much of a full life story as Coop or any of our other faves. Perhaps it's even because he's a little worried that film, by so effortlessly turning non-main characters into plot pawns, helps habituate us to do the same thing in our real life. And look, I could keep on going about Twin Peaks and Twin Peaks The Return. I haven't even managed to work in Zach's favorite line, which I promised that I would. Or set up some slick transition where I start a sentence but then Dr. Jacoby finish it by shouting,
"The fucks are at it again!"
And I haven't mentioned the Garden Glove guy, the fact that David Bowie is now a tea kettle, and did I mention that this season is 18 hours long? But what I'm getting at is this. I don't think that this is anyone's idea of easy art. It's nothing but processing friction. And yet, I absolutely loved it. And while it did have detractors, mostly people that wanted more of what they loved in season 1, many viewers loved it along with me. Critics absolutely adored it. It's common to find it in lists of the best TV shows of the 21st century, and in some cases in lists of the best movies of the 21st century. Don't ask, it's a whole big thing. So, tying it back together a little bit, with what we know about fluency theory, namely that friction sucks, how can this lab-synthesized injection of chemically pure friction be so good? My co-writer Zach recently went to see 2001: A Space Odyssey that I mentioned previously in a movie theater with his partner. A few days later, she recommended the movie to her mom, and her mom's response was, "Is it a thinking movie? Because I gotta be in the right mood for those." Clearly, there's something that draws us to thinking movies and art that challenges us in one way or another. I mean, if there wasn't, we would have kinda stopped innovating. There wouldn't be new emerging art styles and mediums, because no one would feel compelled to push boundaries or try new things. If we are to believe in fluency theory, though, that kinda doesn't make sense. If fluency theory had its way, we'd be living in a perpetual Netflix Christmas movie, happily satisfied with nothing but familiar and non-threatening stimuli. And that's the contradiction that Benno Belke and Helmut Leder from the University of Vienna and Klaus Christian Carbon from the University of Bamberg set out to investigate in 2015. And I'm genuinely so sorry to all of you for how much I butchered your names. If it's any consolation, you're not the first in this channel's history. So to figure this out, they gathered a group of willing participants and put them through a series of experiments, which is, that's what scientists do, but it always sounds really evil, doesn't it? They put them through a series of experiments. But anyway, the basic gist of the experiment is quite simple. The subjects were each shown 2 sets of portrait paintings, and the researchers asked how much they liked the portraits that they had just seen. The first set of portraits was made up of fairly conventional, easily processed pieces, which they called fluency portraits. The second set of paintings were, as you might expect, made up of more challenging, atypical pieces, which they called mastery portraits. All portraits in both sets were painted by widely acclaimed master artists. The fluency sets contained realistic works by artists like Da Vinci, Giertz, Manet, while the mastery set contained much more conceptual works by artists like Picasso, Klee, and probably just to force me to pronounce more French, Monet, not Manet that they had in the first set. And there were various other safeguards and controls to ensure that the test results wouldn't get poisoned by accidentally measuring some other psychological phenomena. You know, science shit. They did science on these men. And women. It wasn't just men, but yeah, I don't know why I said that. Unsurprisingly, the results showed that on first viewing, the participants tended to express a preference for the fluency portraits. Makes sense. No friction, fluency theory. You get it by now. More surprisingly, on the other hand, is that when the researchers then showed their test subjects portraits from both sets again, the mastery portraits, i.e. the friction-heavy, artsy and abstract ones, they saw their preference score start to go up, while the preference scores for the fluency portraits stayed almost exactly the same. Now, think about this for a moment. Even in some stiff, sterile lab setting, a not so optimal setting for pondering on art, all it took was an invitation to spend another moment, think just a little harder, engage yourself just a bit more with these mastery portraits to get people to measurably be more invested in them. And there are many conclusions that you can draw from this, but think of it like this. These test subjects felt good looking at simple, unchallenging, easily processed art. Fair enough. But they also started feeling pretty good as they worked to understand more challenging art. And I think that that's pretty cool.
But wait! There's more!
The researchers decided to test a few more variables that might affect how someone relates to art. So they split the groups up by their familiarity with art analysis. You know, you probably had one group of pretentious art-enjoying assholes that have read Dostoevsky and know how to spell crème fraîche, and one group of basic bitch NPCs named Brian and Rachel who thought that Squid Game was awesome and has Charizard as their favorite Pokemon. Those are the two groups. And the researchers also wanted to see if consciously trying to engage with the art made a difference. So sometimes on that second round of portrait viewing, they would ask questions to get viewers to think analytically. Other times they just remained silent and then they could, compare. And now comes the fun part. The single biggest jump in likability ratings came from when Brian and Rachel got prompted with analysis questions. When art novices, aka the normies, looked at the mastery portraits with a little bit of guidance about how to approach them, their enjoyment went up. Meanwhile, the Dostoevsky assholes liked the hard art more when they didn't have to answer analysis questions about them. Essentially, they liked doing it themselves and not be nagged by other people about it. And to me, a certified dumbass, this is like a really key takeaway. Their approaches may have been different, but both groups found pleasure in the process. This isn't about getting it. That's not required. That's not the point. Like, maybe you're thinking that, of course, this soft boy video essayist with his glasses and receding hairline is gonna cite some impenetrable research paper to convince me to engage with hard art or something, art that I already know that I won't like or won't understand. But that ain't it, chief. I mean, apart from the hairline thing. Ouch, by the way. Because, listen, I have always been bad at media analysis. It's a bit ironic seeing the channel I'm running here, but it's true. I've always kinda sucked at it. It just doesn't come naturally to me. I get swept up in a bunch of other stuff, little details in the cinematography or how the dialogue is written and whatever it may be. And this whole reading between the lines to pick up on the metatextual themes thing just doesn't come easy to me unless I actively try to do it. And a couple of years ago, I did start to actively try to do that. I decided I want to get better at it. And what I've found, and this is from before reading that research paper, is that ever since I did start more actively trying to pick up on shit, my general enjoyment for media that I consume has gone way, way up. Even when I decidedly do not get it, which is 100% the case with Twin Peaks: The Return. But just the action of trying to get it, of engaging myself enough to at least stop and think, what is that thing meant to tell me? Or why would this scene be in here? That is, in and of itself, fulfilling. It makes my brain feel good. Even if I never reach any kind of conclusion. And here's the kicker, I'm telling you this from personal experience. Despite what you might think, it also isn't draining. Like, if anything, it makes me less sluggish, because instead of letting my brain sort of autopilot its way through 4 hours of some bullshit that won't stick with me for a single moment once I turn it off, I'm actively engaging myself in something that inevitably ends up giving me both ideas and inspiration that I otherwise would have had to work so much harder to come by. And the more I do it, the more natural it comes to me. It's just like any other skill. Who would have thunk? And we're now coming up on some sort of conclusion here, which if you mostly consume easy content, I believe, and these smart scientists seem to agree, that you are robbing yourself of an alternative path to feeling good. And I think it's good to recognize that the friction you may experience from more complicated art sort of is the point of it. It's part of what'll make it enjoyable if you give it the chance to do its thing. It's like laying a puzzle or reading a mystery or playing Myst. There's pleasure in starting with something new and unfamiliar, diving in and at least attempting to untangle it. And if you don't feel that you have the right frame of reference to ask the right questions, genuinely, that couldn't matter less. Like, no one really gets it anyway, and whatever questions that form in you as you watch something serve more to start a conversation with yourself, or other people for that matter, than to reach some kind of objective conclusion. Just don't let fear of confusion or of, I don't know, feeling dumb or something keep you from engaging with something that you might really come to value. There's a lot of really cool, absolutely wild stuff out there.
And another thing I say is, if you go after a film with holding abstractions to a copy, place, and having coffee with your friends, someone will say something, and immediately you'll say, no, that's not what that is about. This is what, and so many things come out. It's surprising. So you do know, for yourself. And what you know is valid. You guys.
If all you know is the beast, then the shape of your creature is beyond your control. If all you know is the beast and the shape of your creature is not of your concern, then that is where you are, and that's where you'll rest. But if all you know is the beast, and the frictionless mass of his doings have carved and sanded you into some creature smooth and pale, yet you still cannot rest, then place your quiet creature in the palm of your hand and plant it in soil both rough and coarse. Let your creature know that it does not have to comprehend to enjoy.
Now is gone, you will always remain. Now is gone, you will always remain. It's the future.